All right. Well, just a little bit of a segue from yesterday's retreat. We have one retreat a month where we have an intensive retreat. It's called Dancing with Spirit. It's on a Saturday. And we kicked off a 5-month period of sort of going into the dark along with the seasons as the time gets darker now. And we started yesterday with our first content-wise, we're working with the content of working with the dark emotions. And I'm going to put this up in case you didn't see it or you don't know about it, just for a minute as we talk about it. Somewhere. Let's get this one off. Yeah. That's a book that I read 20 years ago, and then I read it 10 years ago, and now I'm reading it again and just offer it up for people who want to learn how to go into these kinds of things, the dark emotions, the triad of the heart of it is the dark emotion of grief, the dark emotion of despair, and then the dark emotion of fear. It's a kind of holy trinity of dark emotions. They're not bad. They're just dark because we can't see them from our cultural view, and we'll sort of look at that today. And so we started that, and we're going to continue it to talk about that. And some people, you don't have to read the book, but it'd be nice to read along, like where we're heading. I think it's September 10th, the Saturday will be the next intensive. It's going to be, the topic's going to be grief. And so if you decide to, if you want to read along, and I really recommend it, it's a great book. You can sort of read up through grief. You can do it any way you want, really, but there'll be there's no wrong way to do it. Or you don't need to read the book at all. But know that that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to work on grief in September, content-wise, for the talks. These are just the talks. The structure, for those of you who know this structure, is we have a couple of sits, then we do a talk, then we have a couple more sits, so we get 80 minutes. 80 minutes of pure silence during the day, and then we have breaks to write and breaks for breakfast, and then we come back with the ending session with the community, a kind of Quaker meeting at the end. It's a great way to spend the Saturday morning, and it is an intensive, so you get, we're going to sit for 20 minutes today. This is an intensive. So anyway, that's what's coming up. Okay, a couple of poems here on the subject. The first one's it's a part of a great poem. It's a third of a great poem by Bill Stafford. It's called A Ritual to Be Read to Each Other. And it goes like this, sort of sets the scene here, what we're doing. He said, if you don't know who I am, and I don't know who you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in this world, and following the wrong God home, we may both miss our star. So it's important for awake people to remain awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. It's just the first and last stanza of a great poem by Stafford, Bill Stafford. It's called Ritual to Be Read to Each Other. Now that you've seen the screensaver back here. If you don't know, I started one 7th grade year with that. The kids walked into the room. I didn't say anything. They sat down, hands folded on the desks. Best metaphorical foot forward, everybody was acting reasonable at that moment. And I said, if you don't know who I am and I don't know who you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in this world. And following the wrong God home, we may both miss our star. So it's important for awake people to be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. And then I just hit the bell. And we sat in silence for 5 minutes. Well, that group later, they told me towards the end of the year, they said, I was in total terror. I thought, would I understand nothing all year here? What was this? What language are you speaking? But it's great. The darkness around us is deep. It's about ready to, it's dark here right now, and it's about ready to rain. But, we're talking about the darkness. You could talk, it's obvious, we still got COVID. About 500 people a day died from COVID here all around the world. Some people have never even been vaccinated yet. We've got war breaking out in Ukraine, war in Europe. We're shooting missiles from around the nuclear plants, so we're worried about nuclear Armageddon. We got the climate going crazy. Rivers in Europe drying up. All the stuff's happening. You could go on and on. Democracy in about 9 countries that's like hanging on the edge by a thread. Fascism making a comeback. We fought World War II we thought we defeated fascism. It's not a great idea. Things come back. They call it something else, but it's the same thing. So we could go on and on. Roe being repealed. Women, are even further second-class citizens in this country. The darkness around us is deep. But another aspect of it that is the darkness around us is dark because it's so shallow. If you don't know who I am and I don't know who you are, our culture it's getting shallower and shallower and shallower. Plants need a certain depth of, you got to plant a seed a certain depth if the plant's going to grow. And our culture, our communication is getting shallower and shallower. That's the only way you can rule by soundbite, like we're doing. So, that's a part of our problem is culture itself. And it's important that awake people be awake. I don't know why you came here, but chances are you understand that line. You're trying to wake up. And we need more awake people, not zombies, Zombies look like humans, but they're really not very conscious. I'm sure you're not interested in that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Now, the second poem is like, it was something that was a pure gift. It came to me, and I have a few poems like that. And the most unlikely place, the only poem I ever wrote on the commode. So I'm going to give you this poem now, and hopefully it'll shed some light on this darkness. I slid the frosted glass door so that the light wouldn't wake up Pam. I was sitting and reading on the commode in a Hampton Inn at 4:30 in the morning, when I glanced up and noticed the message on the glass door, etched in bright, white, bold letters. It's a happy day in a happy place. I looked up and it was the whole length of the door as this kind of centered poem right there. It's a happy day in a happy place. I chuckled to myself. Well, for one thing, I was reading Greenspan's Dark Emotions. So then I'd look at this. I chuckled to myself and thought, isn't that the essence of the American delusion? That our days could and should always be happy. And that if your days aren't happy, well then, you gotta keep searching for that happy place. Well, that flies right in the face of both the Christian way of the cross and the first noble truth of Buddhism. It flies right into the face of what Jesus called the narrow way and what the Buddha called the middle way. Namely, that conscious suffering through the slings and arrows of the human journey is precisely the doorway to healing and transformation. Happy days are here again? Really? Can you hear Jesus and Buddha laughing and weeping? Yeah. So I'm looking at the door. It's a happy day in a happy place. I chuckled to myself and thought, isn't that the essence of the American delusion? One program I really recommend to you is it's on I think it's on Apple TV, but it'll be on other things at some point. Watch it at some point if you haven't already. It's called Ted Lasso. Jason Sudeikis he wrote it and he stars in it. It's won a lot of Emmys and it's a fantastic thing. And it's basically I'm not going to give it away. I won't want to spoil it for you, but basically it's an American football coach who goes to coach American soccer or to coach British soccer team. He knows nothing about soccer. And he's this totally positive, totally light-filled guy. And it's sort of refreshing. And but I'll just tell you a little bit about how it develops without giving it away. He has to encounter the darkness. He had no darkness about him. I mean, on the surface, but it gets to him eventually in the course of the series. He has to encounter the darkness. Did you ever wonder about people who are so darn positive? I mean, I had a kid who was the most positive kid I ever had. He had a horrible upbringing, but he was always sunny, always positive. And but underneath it was great darkness. So it was a front. Okay. In our culture, you know, it's an upbeat, can-do culture. You should be happy. You should always be happy. And if you aren't, keep searching for that happy place, as you know, Hampton Inn's promise. This is it. In the bathroom here, it's a happy place. Well, it was just ironic to me. And it flies in the face of both what Jesus called the narrow way. He said, you got to go by the narrow way. The Buddha had the middle way 500 years earlier. Well, I want you to take a look at another screensaver here, because this will, you know, it's why this is doomed to failure. It's why, you know, like they pass laws in Florida. I don't want to get too far into Florida here, believe me. It's a swamp, but it's I think I might even have a Floridian there, but you know, the governor there wants to run to be the president. He's passing all kinds of laws against discussing anything about the experience of slavery. They're totally whitewashing it, and I mean whitewashing it. And so because they don't want any kids to feel uncomfortable. I mean, it's nonsense. It's just, you know, it's about, you know, anybody who could see below, you know, a millimeter of facade could see what this is all about. But anyway, so I want to show you this screensaver because it'll explain about the middle way or about the narrow way. If I can figure out how to do this. Yeah, okay. This might be helpful. And some of you may have seen this already. This comes from Pema Chodron's book, latest book, and she talks about the three zones. There's a comfort zone, you can see the large part right in the center, and then the narrow range around it, which she calls the learning zone. And then there's the excessive risk zone surrounding that, the three zones. And her point is that when you're in the comfort zone, you don't learn anything. You don't change at all. You're there. You're in the comfort zone. Nothing really happens. It's status quo. Now, when you're in the excessive risk zone, which I like to call the trauma zone, because, you know, we hit trauma. Imagine those people in Ukraine. You know, shells are hitting, or you could say in Tigray in Ethiopia, you could say in the West in Gaza and the Palestine, all of a sudden bombs come in and half your family's blown away and you're homeless. I mean, this is trauma. You don't want to, there's not much learning there. You freeze when there's trauma. I mean, anybody who's ever had to deal with trauma or been traumatized yourself, you have to have some kind of skillful thawing out. But you just freeze. Okay. So now that narrow thing, what she calls the learning zone, that is the middle way. That is the narrow way. That's where change happens. That's where transformation. I call it the challenge zone. Sometimes when I do a check-in call with some of my fellow pilgrims that I've been working with long term, and there's really not much to say. We check in and they said, well, not much is going on. And I said, well, I'll usually then ask them, well, what's really challenging you right now? And every once in a while, people will say, nothing really. I said, what are you reading? Nothing really. They're happy. I said, how are you? Well, I'm fine. And I said, well, great. And I said, but so then I'll just say, let's do something about this. Normally I'll suggest a book like Healing Through the Dark Emotions, okay, or some such spiritual classic, because you read the classics and it's not comfortable work. That's why there's not 4,000 people here, or 40, or 400 people, or even 40, because this is tough. It's challenging. You had to get up out of bed and change your schedule maybe to get here. So that's what we're looking at. And so this healing with the dark emotions, notice it's the darkest of the learning zones, of the zones, because what's dark is not, and again, we got to drop this idea of dark emotions, dark of being. They used to call Africa the dark continent, black people, they're dangerous or what. No, we have to drop that whole negativity thing with dark. Dark just means we don't know what to do with it. Our culture doesn't teach us what to do. We went into it extensively yesterday, how the culture is really, our culture, and our parents did the best they could, but nobody taught them. Some of you might really resonate with Buckner's experience. Don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. Some of us grew up in houses like that. See, so it's, I'm going to take this off. So we need a kind of education for it, okay? Because, and politicians will get up there and they'll just say, go, we're doing great, and, make America great again. Well, when was it ever great? And for what color of people, and et cetera, not for Native Americans or Black people. And then really too few white people ever. It was great. Make America great again? No, come on. So we're taking another road. And when you look at the title of Miriam's book, Healing Through the Dark Emotions, healing through the dark by going through the dark. Okay, that's a different path. Not many people are up for it. Hopefully you are, because that's the way we're going. And we're going to do it content-wise for the next 4 months. Now in December, after we've gone through getting some practice and some skills for dealing with grief, for going through despair. These are not bad things to happen. Everybody's going to go through all of these multiple times, and then to go through fear. Some people live with it day in, day out. Pretty much if you got a body and you got an ego, you're living with fear all the time. And we all have these things. So it's not a like one and done kind of thing. It's you're, as a mortal being with an ego, we'll be going through this. It's a kind of circular thing, but we can learn skills. We can get into the contemplative tradition, no matter where you start. I started with, Zen master, but you could maybe started with some other tradition. Most people don't have any start in a contemplative tradition, but contemplative traditions will always bring you into the dark and teach you how not to be afraid of the dark, teach you to befriend the dark, and to learn to listen in the dark. See, and to go through the dark to the other side. That's real transformation. That's what we're looking for. And then when we hit it, it'll be perfect in to around Christmas time in Advent, which is the dark time, the time of waiting, to talk about what it would really mean to practice emotional ecology. Ecology brings in the widescreen. It's why we got to start with yourself, but this world needs to be healed. This planet needs to be healed. Our nation needs to be healed. Your community, your families. So that's what ecology means. Everything's connected. So you will get the ability, once you can do your own work, to go out and help in a wider circle. You see, the Hasidic Jews talk about tikkun olam, and there's a great in the Hasidic tradition of Judaism. There's a quarterly that comes out. It's called tikkun. Tikkun means healing, and olam means the world, the universe. So that's what we're really called to be agents of healing for something bigger than me. Psychology and psychiatry are dealing with the self, but contemplative practice realizes that the separate self is a suffering self. We're not really separate. We're connected to all this. Can't be at peace in a world at war. So we're called to really do our best to help, and we'll all find a way. But first, we have to deal with our own darkness. See, otherwise, you're just projecting it. If you pay any attention at all to politics, it's a big projection screen. It's Plato's cave. Where we're trying to dance with shadows, and the real thing, is something deeper. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Now, when we go into meditation, now silent meditation, you don't have to close your eyes. Most people close their eyes. It helps you leave the surface of things, but you're going into the dark. Definitely. Not only the dark physically, you're shutting out, looking at the room and the rain falling or whatever, but you're going into the realm you don't know. Okay. John of the Cross has who's a guy you should read. He's a guy who, boy, talk about a challenge. But he says we're attracted to God as to our center, like a stone toward the center, like a stone will fall towards the center of the earth. Like I'll drop this now. Gravity is it's the strongest physical force on the planet, and that's why we're not flying into space. We're spinning it at our amazing, speed on this planet. But fact is, on this planet, if you drop something, it'll fall towards the center. You see, that's gravity. Well, that works with meditation too. Well, notice, I don't have to do a thing. So get out of this idea that you got to make great, you have to make a great effort in meditation, or there's a lot of stuff to do. No, there isn't. If you can just let go of the surface. And for us, the things we hold on to are thoughts, concepts, even the concept about meditation, even a concept of God or something. You let go of all of it. And then you will just generally, like the stone, fall towards the center. Say, so there's nothing to do in meditation. It's about being. It's about just purely being. Then all of a sudden you're doing something. The only effort, takes a great effort to get here. It takes a great effort to just sit quietly for 20 minutes, because the mind wants you to do a bunch of other stuff, and you will do a bunch of other stuff. All of a sudden you're thinking about breakfast later or something. And then the only effort is very slim, but you just come back. You just lay that thought aside, because it's always a thought that takes you out of the present. Every once in a while, it's like a ache in your back or itch on your nose, or you'll hear a little sound. Those are all considered thoughts in this game. And you notice you're being distracted. That's like catching the stone. And then when you let go of the stone, you let go of the thought, it keeps falling. falling towards the center. It's inevitable, you see. So don't, don't effort so much. Okay. We're just letting it happen. Okay. So if we can get in meditation mode now, just in terms of putting down any writing stuff, if you got writing stuff, and just arranging your body a little bit, it's nice actually to sit up straight, because then you're not putting any effort into into being if you're leaning a little bit, your back muscles are firing out to keep you from falling on the floor or off your cushion. So it's if you sit sort of erect, hands at ease somewhere, either in your lap or on your, most of you know this drill. Okay, so